And we are back for another episode, an exciting, thrilling, cliffhanging episode of the Investor Guys podcast on a Tuesday.
Amen to that. Yeah.
Before we get into Christmas, how you doing, Bill?
I'm doing incredibly well, sir. Good to see you as always. Looking sharp there.
Thank you very much. And I like the way the tie coordinates with the earth tones in the jacket. Excellent.
Thank you. Thank you. It's I call this Mafia Day.
Mafia Day. It looks good. It's very dapper.
Black shirt, black tie, so
Gotta go out
black-ish.
Gotta go out and collect rents today, huh?
That's right. That's right. It's Mafia Day. It's Guido time.
So you had some ideas on today's show. We've already talked about those, and I'm going to let you lead off because you've actually done your homework. You've done the homework on today's show. So I'll let you lead off with what we're going to chat about today.
So we got 2 or 3 different things, a couple of things to do with rental property. One is maximizing your profits in rental property. That'll be our second segment. In our last segment, we're going to talk about how to best use your property manager. But I wanted to start off with some news on the housing market in general. We always get emailed and text questions about the overlook of the market. And this came out of CoreLogic. Home price growth had kept a record pace through the end of October, but a cool down is looming. Nationally, home prices increased 18% in October compared to October of 2020. So year over year, CoreLogic, the real estate data analytics provider, released its home price index report highlighting the October numbers. U.S. annual home price growth remained strong at 18% also in October, the highest recorded in the 45-year history of the index. Nonetheless, monthly price growth has slowed from its peak back in April and signals a moderation in price growth that CoreLogic forecast will continue to slow down in these coming months. Now, despite affordability challenges, recent CoreLogic consumer survey shows that over half of the respondents across every age group said that owning a home has always been a goal of theirs. Furthermore, supporting the outlook that consumer desire for home ownership remains. A new household formation, investor purchase, and pandemic-related factors driving demand for the limited supply of available for sale homes continue to push pricing upward. And that was from Frank Martell. He is the president and CEO of CoreLogic. However, we expect home price growth to moderate over the near term as many buyers take a break for the holidays. And as you and I know, and most anybody that's in the business and has been for any time at all, fourth quarter, very traditionally slow time. And the closer we get, like we are now, to the end of the year, the slower it gets. And then we get into January, and it typically takes a couple of weeks in January for people to realize, all the holidays are over and it's time to get back to work. And then they start thinking about things like real estate again. This is, and I stress this to all of my clients on a regular basis, as I know you do, December is the single greatest month of the year to buy property in. You get deals now that you're not going to get the 3rd or 4th or 5th of January because people, one, are still wanting to move property, and then 2, sometimes they're in a position where they really need to this calendar year, not next year. And so if you're not out there putting offers in on property, shame on you, because you're going to miss some great deals. Nationally, home prices increased 18%. We mentioned that compared to last year. That is a year over year. And the month over month number increased 1.3%. That is, how much did we go up October from just September, just in 1 month? 1.3%. In October, appreciation of detached properties, which is about 19.5%, was 6.6% higher than attached properties, meaning townhouses, condos, anything that is not a freestanding property. Home price gains are projected to drop to about 2.5% by October of next year, 2022, as affordability and economic concerns slow some buyers down. And of course, those economic concerns are just going to continue to ratchet up as we see inflation ravaging the dollar. I noticed the other day that in one of the White House conferences, they had mentioned that gas prices had come down 2%, failing to say anything about the fact that they had gone up over $1 before they came down, and that was why Biden released the largest amount of our strategic oil reserves. Do not misunderstand that move. That move is meant to weaken our country and doesn't have anything to do with you and I having lower gas prices. That is meant to put our defense in a vulnerable position. And it's not going to be long. We're going to get the clowns out. And when we do, you're going to see if you're poised to take advantage of the real estate market. When we say take advantage, that we don't mean somebody's losing, you're winning. What we mean is here's opportunity, make yourself available of that. Yeah, and go for it. When that happens, as we get into, and it's going to be dependent on what happens in November of next year with the midterm elections. So I just strongly urge everybody to get out and vote. And I also want to strongly urge you to participate. One of the things that made the Virginia win so outstanding for the Republicans or for the conservatives, whether you care you're a Republican or not, I don't really care. I'm conservative, is the fact that we had poll watchers and 93% of the available poll watchers for the state of Virginia were Republican poll watchers for the state of Virginia were actually used where they had been running about 30%. And the see something, say something. So if we will get involved, we can swing this thing back around to where economic sense is being made. We can undo some of the damage. You're not going to be able to undo all of it. We can undo some of the damage that's been done. And if we do that, we may see a prolonged real estate market jump again. We may get another 3 or 4 or 5 years out of the uptick in the real estate market, and it not solely be based on what it is right now, which is two things: inflation and the reallocation of population. Those two things are the things that are really focusing the drive in so much of the markets that are really hot. When we talk about national numbers, you see numbers like coming out of Texas and Florida, where they're just unreal how they're growing. But you see places, other places where people are fleeing. California is a great example. It's going to keep on in California. That California will turn out to be, in the next few years, may turn out to be a very attractive place to start buying property again, based on how crazy it's been. And I think we may see some interesting things happen in California going forward, which was at one time a conservative stronghold in America and has now become the crazy stronghold. And so they're way past Democrat or liberal. They're all the way off into crazy. And so we're going to see some turnaround, I believe, and it's up to you and I to make that happen.
And something to add real quick before we get into our break, these numbers that Bill's going over, in order for these companies like CoreLogic to accumulate all this information, it takes them about 3 months, maybe even longer. So we're talking about a 3-month lag on information. I was talking to Bill about this the other day before we did one of the other shows that we did. I did a real-time comparison here in Palm Beach County. And the last numbers I had heard on Palm Beach County for rents they were up like 30-something%. So I did a real-time comparison. As of about a week ago, we're actually up 67% plus year over year on increase in rent. I did not have the ability, I didn't have the information in front of me easily to be able to do a mortgage comparison, but I heard a comparison that was done a little over a month ago, and it may have been Bill actually that did this, 18% increase in mortgage values year over year. I heard a number the other day that had it closer to 25% increase in mortgage values year over year here in Palm Beach County. And so that a lot of people understand this, is when I talk to people about this is the value of increase in the value of mortgages for people purchasing homes that purchased homes in Palm Beach County. That doesn't account for the people like, well, my mortgage didn't go up. No, if you already lived in Palm Beach County, your mortgage didn't go up. which tells you how many people have moved into this area, that it has increased the value of mortgages almost 25%, because that includes people who lived here for the last 20 years, last 30 years, last 5 years, last 10 years. We have seen apartments, 2-bedroom apartments, go from $1,700 to $3,000 in a year's time. There were houses that were for rent for $2,200, $2,500. They're now going for $5,000 and $6,000, the exact same house. It's crazy what we're seeing. So the numbers that we're seeing, there's a lag time on that, the numbers that we're reporting. The other thing to consider is that across the board is what Bill is talking about, not specific markets. There are specific markets like Austin where you're not going to see that, like the Palm Beaches, Fort Lauderdale, Miami, where you're not going to see that. Even Idaho, Boise, Idaho, you're probably not going to see those types of decreases. In addition to California, keep your eye on New York City, especially the cities, New York City, Syracuse, Buffalo, Rochester, Albany. The cities, watch those, because people are exiting en masse from those cities, and they're coming to places like Texas, coming to places like Florida, going to places like even Georgia. They cannot get out fast enough. And unfortunately, the powers that be in those states are not doing anything to keep those people there. They're actually doing things that deliberately drive those people out. So it doesn't make sense, but we are in strange times. But great times for real estate if you just put yourself in front of the opportunity. Think of the opportunity as a speeding train that you want to get hit by, okay? So find that track, stand on it, and wait for that train to hit you and carry you down the tracks with it. All right, we've got a break, and we're going to talk about boosting the value of our rental properties as soon as we get back. And we are back. In this segment, we're going to be talking about improving values for your rental properties. But Bill had a couple of things he wanted to wrap up on the previous segment before we get into that. Go ahead, Bill.
Now, so we had talked about some specific markets. The number one market in the past 12 months, year over year, was Twin Falls, Idaho, which went up. Now, these are sales prices, went up 35.8% in 12 months. And then Florida as a state was the highest year over year price increase over the country. And Naples came in as the second highest individual city in the country with an increase of 33.5% year over year. So the out west had some dramatic, the Mountain West states had Arizona, Idaho, Utah had some dramatic increases. 28.8% for the state of Arizona, 28.7% for Idaho, and Utah at 24.5% year over year. So again, nationally, over 18%, but specific markets that were just crazy hot. And so we wanted to, we talk about and love rental property. And if you're going to have rental property, you're always evaluating what can I do to maximize the rental income and the value of my property. And so we're going to talk about 5 basic tips that you can do. And you can do this on any property that you have. Could you do this as you're going into a flip? Certainly. But on rental properties, these little things can add up to a greater rent for your property. And the first one is literally just, what can I do to improve the exterior of my property? Well, some basic things that you can do that seem like when I read these things and I write a bunch of articles that are like this, and sometimes when I'm doing that, I'm like, everybody knows this. But then you go out and you start looking at property and you go, yeah, everybody doesn't know this. And so we just did this on a property that we're in the process, a flip property that we're doing right now, where we had completely redone the exterior. It had aluminum siding on it when we bought it. We took the aluminum siding off and went wood siding. It just totally changed the look of the property. But we left the aluminum fascia and soffits. And so what do we have? They were white. So what do we have to do? We had to power wash them. So power washing You can get a really good power washer for $1,500 to $2,000, brand new. And if you look around, you can buy them used on Craigslist and stuff for significantly less than that. But it's amazing. This is probably, the aluminum on this house is probably 25, 30 years old. You could tell it had been around a while. And when we were taking it off on the walls, on the exterior walls, some of it really would break off in your hand. So vinyl siding, I said aluminum is vinyl siding. But pressure washing, can really make the exterior of a property, a brick house, any kind of property that you got, pressure washing can really do a great job. Now, you want to be careful if it's a wood painted property that you don't have the pressure up too high, because you'll knock the paint off. And if you're going to repaint it, put it up high and let it knock it off. And then if you're going to repaint, that's a good prep also for repainting. And then repainting your front door or putting in a new front door, which is the focal point that everybody sees. The biggest thing on this particular property, in my opinion, from the exterior, I mean, the wood that we put up just knocked your eyes out. We'll have to do some slides on it on an upcoming show, but it had a single door with a full-size window to the side of it. And we took all of that out and put in a larger door with the 1-foot windows that went floor to ceiling on each side of it. And what it did was, it's the same space. We didn't change the dimensions of the space at all, but it totally changed the appearance of the space, and it looks significantly larger. Now, we took the door, and just because of the door window configuration, the door is now in the center of the space, where obviously I think it should have been all along. And it really opened up the space dramatically. So doing something with your front door, putting a new front door in, just repainting your front door, staining your door if you have a nice wood door. My former home, I had a gorgeous double wood doors on it, on the front of it, and we faced due west. And so we'd get that hot Texas afternoon sun, which will eat up painted or stained door. And about every 2.5, 3 years, we had to go in and redo that door, because the paint, the sun just ate it alive. So doing something with your front door is huge. And then landscaping. It's amazing how many people pay so little attention when they're selling a property to the landscaping. Just keeping the grass cut, keeping it edged nicely, keeping the trees. One of the things that we really stress on your trees for landscaping is what we call raising the canopy. The canopy is the bottom of the tree, where the branches come out. And so the way I look at it is, you need 8 to 10 feet from standing underneath the tree up before you get to the first limbs. You need to easily be able to walk around anywhere around, next to the trunk, out to the end of the branches. You need to be able to easily walk under there without having to duck. And if you're doing that, when you cut off all the limbs up to that. So we call it skinning a tree. You skin it up to that 8 to 10 foot point. Then what happens is, optically, the tree actually looks taller, and you make your home more visible. So many properties, you just don't see them. And if you see a ton of overgrown hedges, those kind of things, cut that stuff back. I always kind of look at it like hair. When I was growing up, it used to drive me crazy. My dad would say, "Get a haircut." And I'm like, "Dad," and he goes, "It'll grow back." Well, you know what? Landscaping is the same way. It'll grow back. So take don't
underestimate the value of some color, especially if you're in a market like Texas, where Bill is, or where I am, or California, or Nevada, or Arizona, anywhere where you don't have a half a year of cold, like say Ohio or New York or something like that. Put some color in there. And I always say perennials are year round. Okay. Plant some year-round color, and it doesn't have to be flowers. It can be trees. There are trees that have color all year. It's not green, they're red, or they're violet, or they're yellow, or they're whatever, but it's color, and it draws your eye to that particular property, because all the other properties around it, they're green. And a lot of people, we've had this conversation before with other people, and they're like, how is painting your building, or how is landscaping your building or whatever going to increase your rents when your rent should be based on market rent? Consider these few things. First of all, if you've ever rented an apartment or a house, and I'm sure most of the people who we're speaking to have at some point in their life, first thing you do is drive by. How many places have you driven by and said, nah, I'm just not feeling it, and you just keep on driving? And it's because the paint was falling off, or it's because the door didn't look right, or because of this, that, or the other. If you've got people driving by and stopping and coming in and looking at that unit, you're going to have people renting that unit a lot faster. That means you have less downtime. That means you're not paying for that building with not having renters in it. So every day that you don't have a renter in there, you're losing money because you have costs that you have to pay. So the sooner you get that rented, the better. That is increasing your rents. Also, keep in mind, if your building is more desirable than a similar building down the street or 2 blocks over or 3 blocks over, you can it may be 25, maybe 35, maybe $50 more a month in rent that you can ask for because your building is nicer. You've got a nicer parking lot, you've got a nicer laundry room, you've got a nicer whatever than the competition in the area. It doesn't cost you that much more to have that, but you're getting better rents and you're probably getting better tenants as well. And one of the things that Bill forgot to mention, and I'm surprised he did, is your 10 times multiplier. Okay. So remember that when we're talking about commercial properties and rents, and we can be talking about individual properties, we can be talking about commercial properties, but on commercial properties, each one of those is a 10 times multiplier. So if you're getting $10 more a month, you're making $120 more a year. And on your 10 times multiplier, you're making $1,200 more on a 10 times multiplier. So keep all those things in mind. And again, appearance is an easy thing to take care of. Anybody can do that. You don't even have to, if you're good with a paintbrush, you don't even have to have a contractor come out. Otherwise, have a painter come out. What other points were there on there? For some reason, my Taiwan.
So one of the things is that, very simple thing to upgrade a property. The appearance on the interior throughout is simply to go in and exchange hardware. So you're looking at any kind of cabinetry, both kitchens and bathrooms. And changing out the hardware can really update the look. Certainly repainting and that should go without having to be touched on, but you don't have to repaint the whole property. Maybe you look at, there's a room or two that needs to be repainted. And a lot of times adding an accent wall can really make a room pop. So we take a look at those things. What can we do inexpensively to really spiff up a property? When you're going in, and especially on apartments, we do this in our houses all the time as well. You can do light staging. Staging is dressing out the property as if somebody was living there. But look, you can do light staging where you go to Marshall's, JT Maxx, Costco, Dollar General, whatever, Tuesday morning, any kind of 99-cent lots, big lots, whatever. Any of those stores you can buy stuff inexpensively on and look through and get towels and just go in and put a set of towels in the bathroom that match the bathroom and leave them. But what happens when you do that is it's simply significantly easier for somebody who is looking at the property to envision themselves living there. As opposed to it being, people say, oh, it's empty. They can see their stuff in there. I'm going to tell you, give buyers too much credit if you think that. The more help you can give them in visualizing what it's going to be, the easier it is for them to be able to see that. So another thing you can do is going in and adding, we said doing an accent wall. You can do the same thing by putting an inexpensive piece of artwork. And anytime we do that, we always make that a gift to the home buyer. If we're selling a property, if we're doing rental property, then we take it out. So we look at small things that changing out light fixtures can really change a property. Repainting cabinets or resurfacing cabinet doors or replacing cabinet doors on a lot of you and I both buy a lot of homes that we're going to keep as rental property that are very old. And sometimes you can go in and for a few $100s just replace kitchen cabinet doors and completely change the look of the kitchen and update it very, very nicely.
And something, interject really quick, something that experienced investors do when they're doing this process is we will invest in something that is nicer and is going to be a better quality that is going to last longer. So if I'm going into a unit and I'm replacing the faucets and replacing all the water fixtures, I'm going to do something that it looks great, but it's going to be commercial grade. That means it's going to last longer. It's not going to last for a few. It's not made out of plastic. It's not going to break off in somebody's hand if they're, doing it a lot or whatever. I'm using commercial grade. It's going to last longer. Same thing with lighting fixtures. Okay. I can pay a little bit more and I can get a great looking commercial light fixture that's going to last a lot longer than a cheap piece of plastic that's going to sag from just whatever ambient heat there is attacking it day in and day out. If I'm going in and I'm replacing carpet, I'm looking for something that I can put on the floor that's going to be more durable. If I have a subfloor, I can't just leave the subfloor exposed. So I'm putting in tile, or I'm putting in laminate, or I'm putting in a hardwood. Something's going to last longer than carpet, and it's also going to be more eye-popping. While we're in there, we're making this investment. Yes, it may be cheaper to put in carpet, but for a few $100s more, maybe I could put in hardwood, or maybe I could put in a laminate. It's something that's going to last longer. It's going to give it more appeal. So I'd rather put that money in then than be back in that same position in 3 years or 4 years, having to replace that carpet again. And in the course of 3 years, I spent twice as much as it was going to cost me to put in that floor I was thinking about doing 3 years ago. So while you're going through that process, make sure you are also investing in the durability and the quality of the property that you own. This is your investment. Make sure that you're taking care of it. Same as you would do oil changes on your car and keep fresh tires on it and keep it vacuumed and cleaned. This is your investment.
Excellent. How are we doing time-wise?
We are way past our need to
had that feeling.
Anything else you want to add real quick, and we'll go ahead and break for our last segment.
No, let's cut it short. We can cover some more of this stuff down the road.
All right. We'll see you back here in just a minute. We are back with our final segment of this show. It's a very long show already, but that's okay. Thanks for sticking with us. One of the things that Bill and I are always saying, and this, most people, when they start investing in real estate, they think they're going to be a landlord. And being a landlord is what holds a lot of people back from investing. They think they're going to have to be a landlord and they just don't want to deal with it, so they don't invest. Bill and I do not manage our own properties. We have all kinds of management tricks that we have our managers employ, but we don't want to manage our own properties for a number of reasons. For me, and for most investors, it's because it takes up time that we could be doing something else. Even if it's just spending time with our family, it's taking up time that we could be doing something else. It's worth paying somebody to do. It is a line item. When we are doing our numbers on that particular property, we are factoring in our property management. If we're still making money when we factor in that property management, awesome. If we're not, we look for another deal. I tell people all the time, if I own the house next door to me, I would have a property manager there, and tenants would not know that I own the house. I don't want to have to deal with it. Last but not least, property managers, that is their job. That is what they do. That is not what I do day in and day out. I do other things. I am not as good as somebody who does it every single day. That is their business. They love doing it. That's why they chose to do it. They're good at doing it. That's why they chose to do it. They have experience and a history of doing it. I'd rather pay a professional to do it than have to deal with it myself and have to go through those learning curves myself and deal with those phone calls and everything else that I just am not interested in doing. It doesn't matter. I'd rather pay somebody, and it's worth it. It's an investment in my investment. That said, what did you have to add, Bill?
Well, the one of the most important things for any rental property is our tenant. And getting a good quality tenant in the property, I want to make sure that the right amount of screening is done so that we get the best tenant of the available pool of tenants out there for a particular property. Now, how we do that is by letting the property manager and or our agent, you can have both of them, a real estate agent or your property manager, get you a tenant. But you want to make sure that you have a very solid, frank conversation with them. Look, I want to have drug testing, not drug testing, drug history. Do they have any, have they been arrested for drug crimes? I don't want to put anybody in one of my properties that's been arrested for selling drugs, as an example. I'm not going to. Yeah, I'm not going to put a sex offender in one of my properties. And people might be going, "Oh, Bill, you can't do that. That's discriminatory." No, it's not. There are a lot of protected classes in our country, and I know that there's a lot of liberals would love for felons to become a protected class as well. But as of today, they're not. So anybody with a drug conviction, I don't want them in my property. Anybody that's on the sex offender list, and look, you can get a sex offender list for every zip code in the country, and it tell you, and by the way, you may want to do that, and it may shock you when you do that. It'll tell you how many sex offenders they are. In some cases, you can find out actually where they live in your neighborhood.
There's an online site, I forget what it is, but there's a free online site that you can go and you can put in your address, and it'll actually show dots in the area that you were in. And when you click on each one of those dots, it will tell you the name of the offender. It'll tell you what class are, because there's different classifications, different colors. And there's a key that'll tell you what each one of those colors means. There's also a photo, usually it's the booking photo of that individual that is also included. It is a free website. If you do a Google search, it'll be easy for you to find. I forget what it is. It's like meganslist.org or something like that.
So I want to know those things. And look, I go back to you are allowed to filter out criminal histories. You do not have to rent to a sex offender. You do not have to rent to someone with a drug conviction or any type of criminal record, especially. I don't want anything that falls in the felony side. But that is something I want to have a very frank and open conversation with my property manager, with my real estate agent, whoever's going to be working to get my tenant in there. Because again, that's something that I don't want to interview people. I want to interview property managers so I can turn all that over to them and just get more property for them to manage, and me not have to get involved with all of that other stuff on a day-to-day basis. That's why we pay them. I don't cut the yards of the properties. I don't repaint. I don't do any of that stuff. Neither should you. And why? Because we can have someone else do it significantly cheaper in the grand scheme of things when we look at the use of our time. And we've done many, many segments where that's come up. So this property manager getting you the right tenant in your property can be the night and day difference on how you feel about being a landlord. I love being a landlord because I don't have to mess with that stuff. And I've never found my own tenants. I've never done that. I don't ever intend to do that. I don't like property management personally, but I love property managers. That's a different statement. So those two things. And also, it also allows you to make sure that you're less likely to have any issues. I had a friend of mine do a rental house, a very expensive home, about expensive for our area. And he rented it out. He's renting it for about $4,000 a month. And he didn't do proper vetting on the couple that he rented to. And he said, well, they were kind of young, but you know what, guy, they just seemed really nice. And he did a credit check, but he didn't do any kind of criminal history check. And they turned his house into a marijuana growing facility, which in Texas is still illegal. And when he found out about it, how he found out about it was the police knocked on his door and questioned him because they had already gone over to the house. Now, the people had gotten away. The people had gotten tipped off that a raid was coming, but they found out all of the damage that was done to the property. They did over $100,000 worth of damage to the property because they had turned it into a growing facility. They also had tapped into, they drill or jackhammer the hole in the garage floor and tied into the power coming into the house before it hit the meter. And the power company estimated that they were stealing about $4,000 a month worth of electricity for all the lighting and stuff that you do if you're raising marijuana plants. Like I know, but you know. So.
I, as a contractor in California, we actually rehabbed a number of grow houses. They destroy the house. You've got it's a humid environment because they basically turn into a greenhouse. So you've got mold and mildew everywhere. You have to pull everything out. They destroy the house because they don't use the bathrooms for bathrooms. They use them for basically irrigation systems. So they have ripped off all the fixtures and everything else and put hoses on them. It destroys the house. So what Bill's getting at is you want a criminal background check. Okay. Now, unfortunately, the state of California, it has a law that you cannot do a criminal background check on your tenants anymore. That is where the liberals would love to see everywhere go with that. But in any other state, you can do a background check. It usually takes $25 to do a background check, and you know what criminal history these people have before you put them into a property. And real quick, the website the Department of Justice website for sex offenders is nsopw.gov. That's nsopw.gov. And it's really easy. You just put your address in there. You put your city, the state, and however large of a radius you want to search, and it'll tell you what's right there in your particular area. So didn't want to interrupt you. By the way, we are at 10 minutes on the segment. So if you have thoughts, continue on that.
Look, we could do.
I don't want sex offenders in my properties. I don't want criminals in my properties. Now, there's a caveat to that. If they have a misdemeanor and it was for something simple like traffic infringement, and some traffics are misdemeanors, some are just infractions and they don't show up at all. But a misdemeanor will show up on a criminal background check. Okay, so if they have a traffic stop that showed up as a misdemeanor for some reason, I would consider that. There are other types of misdemeanors that are out there. Certain jobs, if you don't have a license in California, if you cut somebody's hair and you don't have a license, a cosmetology license, you have a felony now on your record for cutting somebody's hair. I don't have a problem with that. If you want to cut somebody's hair, even if you want to cut somebody's hair in my unit, as long as you clean it up, because creepy other people's hair, I don't even want to go there. I don't have a problem with that. So keep those things in mind when you're doing the background check. Just because something comes up doesn't mean that they're a no. If somebody has been caught before selling drugs, if somebody's been caught before running a grow house, if somebody's a repeat DUI offender, if somebody is a criminal, I don't want them in my house, not just for my own safety, the safety of my other tenants that are in the same property, and the safety of the neighbors, because if the neighbors turn against me, I have a very unhappy situation there as well. Yep. So I'm in complete agreement with you there, Bill.
That's it. I'm not bringing up anything else.
Well, we'll talk about this more because we could probably do a whole show just on this. So another day we will cover these points. And for now, we'll get out of your hair. And thank you again for joining us. This is a holiday week, and we will be here Thursday. Yep. But it is Christmas this coming weekend. So I hope everybody is being safe and making all of those plans. Don't forget, though, we are investors, and it's fun to take a holiday, but keep an eye on the market and don't put your investing on the back burner. There you go. Happy Tuesday to you. I will see you later.
Happy Tuesday to you too. And I will see you Thursday.
The rest of you, happy investing.